Hi everyone, today we're going to create this scene together, and this includes cliffs and some trees and some manual paint map fog. So I have prepared a height map for you and some files you will need to follow along. The description to my Google Drive, the link is in the description, and so I encourage you to go and download them, and then we can start. And we will do this from scratch, so we will do everything from the beginning. So as soon as you've got your files downloaded, we're going to create a height map, which is, I think, Harsh Valley. That's the one from the Bergmir Heightmap pack, which I have shared with you here. So just pick this and it will appear, or you could have, when you've got the pack, you just drag and drop them from the asset library. So that's the one we do. We do the standard procedure. So we scale our map up by 200. We apply the scale, go to our modifier stack, and I usually just bring in my subdivision modifier, bring it up and bring this back to 200. Now let's find a good point of view, something like that. So let's go to rendered view and bring in our water shader or water mesh. We'll take the ocean one. I'm scaling this up by 900. Looks terrible, just apply the scale, and we are going to rotate it and now scale it up so it actually fills our whole viewport. So that's that, like this. Move it up here a little bit more to the right, like so, and then we're going to solidify. I think 10 meters will be more than enough, and then just bring it up on the z-axis, so we've got our first island or cliff set up. We are going to duplicate, but we're making it a linked duplicate, so that's Alt D and not Shift D, and find a proper position so it doesn't look too obvious that we have just duplicated our first terrain. So something like that, and then just bring this down a little bit like so, and have this small color. Yeah, that looks about fine. Now let's head over to the shader and add some material, and as this is a linked copy, it will also apply to our second island. So let's go to here. The next thing we need to do is, we've scaled this up by 200, so let's increase the material displacement to 2. And yeah, heading over to the shader, and that's of course the terrain we're using, and let's find something for our for the ground, something like this, and then a cliff texture. Very easy, very standard. And I'm heading over, I think, to desert, where I'm picking my favorite cliff texture of them all. And it doesn't look too good right now. And why is that? Because, as I'm always saying, it's all about the scale. So we can increase it to 2K, so it gives us a little bit more sharpness. And so texture size, we scaled it up by 200, so 180 should give us a very nice cliff texture. And for the displacement for the cliffs, I usually go with 0.3. And a little bit hidden is a great feature. It's in color variants, and then in the advanced settings is the AO base dirt, which gives you a very fine layer of dirt. And I also like the so 1 is already the maximum, so let's go to 0.5, and then the second one, which is a little bit too much, makes it too light, so 0.1 should be good for us here. Little bit too little contrast here, so let's head over back to our ground and find something, maybe even in the desert category, that fits our need a little bit better. Let's take the desert red sand. Yes, more contrast, but we've got a little bit, yeah, increase this to 2K as well. And for the ground, 50 or something like that should suffice. And then also with the shader, let's increase the displacement to 0.2, something like that. I mean, from that perspective, it's not that important, but still. Now, I've got a little bit too much cliff in here, so I'm heading over to the shade blending, and it should be increased. No, it should be decreased if I want to have more ground in it, so 0.3, 0.2. That looks actually quite good. Let's head back over to shaded view. Yeah, I think that's fine. Okay, now let's increase the blend a little bit. Won't see much here, but why not? Okay, now the water looks very flat right now, so first of all, let's find a nice light setting that helps us with seeing what we're doing with the water, something like that, and maybe increase the height of the sun position a little bit. We're going to work with true sky anyway, but for now. Okay, so let's head over to the shader settings, and I like to do a little bit of blue and decrease the brightness, and then importantly increase the ripple intensity. So we scaled it up by 900. 2 to 4 is usually good enough. So if I'm zooming in, I'm getting somewhat realistic form of ripples in here. Now it all falls, and now I'm going to share sort of, it's not a trick, it's just something we're going to do now. So what we're going is we are going to apply a paint map. So paint map on, and now we're heading to our shader section. So shader editor, and we have our water shader in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a couple of things to this shader. So the first thing is we're going to take an image texture, and we're going to duplicate that because we're going to take 2 of them. And then Control T, well, I don't need both, I just need one. And we've got our texture coordinates and mapping coordinates in here. So both for the same, and in this one we're going to put the file, the alpha water foam. So that will be our paint map, and we don't need it RGB, we need it non-color, and we're going to connect it to our paint map. And you can already see we can play with that, with the size and things like that. And you could leave it at that and play with the size and the brightness, and have some sort of ocean fog foam in here until it doesn't look very good at all. But this time what we're going to do is we're going to take this paint map, and what we are also going to do is yeah, we can still, let's find a nice, yeah, something like that. Yep, okay, and that's fine. And now we are going, yeah, heading back to this one. So, and here we are going to put our water foam JPEG. And now we need two more things. The first thing is a mix shader node, which we're going to connect with the shader of True Terrain. And we're going to take a new shader, a subsurface scattering shader. So we're connecting the water foam to the subsurface shader and connect that to this. And we see just white, and this is because doesn't look much better, but this is the reason for that is we have the texture coordinate on UV, so that needs to be generated. And now if we're playing with the FEQ, we're getting quite some nice and realistic looking ocean foam into our scene. You can play with the location, you can animate them, things like that. But I think it looks good as it is right now. So now the fun part begins. We're almost finished. So the fun part is we're now going to play with, let's close this up, and we're going to go to True Sky and just enable it. And now we can start just finding a cool rotation setting and height, things like that, and find something we like. And this actually already looks quite good. And this is just the beginning, because whenever you start with True Sky, it's difficult to stop and know when it's enough. So I'm actually going to disable the paint map foam subsurface modifier because it gives me a too bluish tint. So I like to have that as white as possible. So we could work with haze here as well. And in the Discord channel you will have seen that the right amount of haze height is the height of your camera times 11. So let's do that. So that was 542 times 11. So that is the amount of haze. You can increase the scattering and it always should look correct and quite nice. So let's leave it at that, not too much of the scattering. Now I'm going to select the ocean because now we're going to do our fog. So let's go with rolling fog, and as you can already see, it has created a fog mesh on top of our ocean fog ocean modifier. So you can play with a couple of colors in your fog for gradients and absorption. So you can play with the scale, you can play with density to see where your fog actually is, and then fine-tune it wherever you want. The formation, you can see it's quite it's rolling fog, right? So that's what it is. But I think rolling fog might not be the right option for us here. I mean, it looks okay, but all our great foamy ocean has been kind of covered up with that. So what I think we will do is, and I'm not going to cut this out of the video because I wanted you to see how the rolling fog looks like. So what we're going to do is I'm deleting the rolling fog, again selecting my ocean, and I'm going to choose surface fog, which is a little bit more wispy and transparent, and that is what I want for this scene. So what is important is you get your surface fog mesh, you need to scale it up on the Z-axis so you can actually get some volume into the fog. So that's quite important. And as always, when you have finished, apply the scale. And then the same thing. Just find some colors you want your fog to be. I sometimes use the colors from my scene just by taking the color picker and pick one of those. And already this looks quite fine. I'm increasing the density so I'm seeing where my fog is. You can play with your fog values like the formation. So that gives you a nice value for animation, for example. Or you can just take the surface fog mesh and rotate that around. But you've got full control of where you want how much fog in what color. And that's what you can do here. So you can see if I'm increasing the patches or decrease it, it gets denser. So let's find something that is looking good. So I'm decreasing the scale of the X and Y, leave the Z as it is, move the whole mesh a little bit upwards, rotate it. I mean, this is something that is totally up to you. I'm just showing you what I'm doing when I'm creating this scene. Play again a little bit with the fog formation. You can play with the location of the fog. I mean, there are so many great scenes just by moving some of the volumes here. But you know, we should actually give it a rest, and by that I mean let's hit F12 and see how this scene looks like. Yeah, something like this. Yeah, I think that's the scene we should give a render, and there we go. And this is our result of our first approach. So we got nice foam on the ocean, we've got the misty look, and if you take a different light setting, this one is mid-morning, change the light a little bit and put some alpha trees or some trees from the True Terrain assets on there, you get scenes like this. And I hope you have found something useful in here, and see you next time. Bye.